Bruce Sudano is a singer-songwriter and producer who, alongside his late wife Donna Summer, co-wrote hits including Bad Girls and Starting Over Again. And to this day, he continues to record and tour while sharing stories of his love, heartache and spirituality through music. And Bruce is on the line with us here just now. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. I'm over in Milan,
Oh,
so we're in similar time frame. Not
yeah.
exact, not exactly, but similar.
And are you living there now, or are you just like visiting?
Yeah, I live here half the. I spent basically my life goes this way: a
Hmm.
third of the road in Milan, a third of the time on the road, a third of the time in Milan, and a third of the time in Los Angeles.
Well, that sounds like a nice little routine you've got going there.
Yeah, I was over in Edinburgh not too long ago.
Mm.
I was on tour and I was on tour opening for a band called the Zombies,
Oh wow.
and, so I was also we also played in Kinross,
Oh yeah.
and one of the new songs that will be on my next album is called "On a Tuesday in Kinross."
Oh well, that's nice. I take it that event served as the inspiration for it.
It did, yes. We were staying at a hotel. It's called the Green Hotel,
Mm.
and the venue is basically in the back, in the basement of the hotel, and it's a very special little place, in a very mystical town.
Absolutely. Now, we'll talk about some of your new music a little bit later, but first of all, where you grew up was Brooklyn, which is a city with quite a rich musical history. So, how did your early environment shape your musical style and your passion for it?
Well, there used to be when I was 9 years old, I got taken to a rock and roll show. There
Hmm.
used to be these rock and roll shows at what was called the Brooklyn Paramount Theater, and it was basically run by Alan Freed or Murray the K, who were seminal disc jockeys from back in the day. And these rock and roll shows would have Jerry Lee Lewis and Chuck Berry and vocal groups like the Impalas or Little Anthony and the Imperials. And so, as a 9-year-old, seeing this spectacle, it made one impression on me.
Yeah.
And then, you know, for some, my calling, I say it's a calling. Uh, from early on, I wanted to be a songwriter. And this was the place where I saw I could make my entry into the music business.
Absolutely. And you had your first sort of paid gig around the age of 12, right?
I did, yeah, which was kind of an odd thing.
Hmm.
My earliest musical training came from the time I was 4 years old. It started. My Italian grandfather went back to Italy to visit family, came back to America, back to Brooklyn, and handed me an accordion. And so I was kind of compelled to learn how to play the accordion. And so this gave me an early understanding of melody and chord structure.
Yeah.
And also, the accordion is interesting because, on one hand, you're playing the treble clef, and on the left hand, you're playing the bass clef. So it gave me an early understanding of music and how it all went together. And then, but on the other side of that, my inclination was for English literature. I began writing poetry when I was very young. And so it all just came together when, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones hit,
Yeah.
it all kind of made sense.
Absolutely. And you co-wrote the song Ball of Fire when you were just 20 years old, which was a hit. So, how did that influence your confidence as a songwriter moving forward?
Well, it's interesting because I've never really been confident as a songwriter, I would
Mm,
say. Uh, but my story of Ball of Fire, I usually tell it this way. They say, Bruce, so Ball of Fire, like, what did you contribute to that song? And I
mm,
typically say, I came up with the word of.
yeah.
So so I mean I think that Tommy James of Tommy James and the Shondells, who had the hit with that song and who was the main writer of that song, at that point in my life, really was taking me under his wing. He was the first person to take me into a recording studio to see
Mm,
how a record was made. Back in those days, it wasn't like today where you could basically record on anything.
yeah.
This was before cassettes. It was difficult to record. The earliest songs that I wrote, I would have to sing them over and over and over again so that I would remember them because I had nothing to record them on.
Yeah.
So, so anyway, he was the first person to take me into a recording studio, and I got to see how a record was made, and sang some backgrounds on some of his earlier records, and so he was very influential in my life that way.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you've never really been confident as a songwriter. Why do you think that is? Because, I mean, you've had hits and you've got songs that we all know. So I guess there isn't much more that could happen to make you confident.
Well, yeah. The thing is that when you're a songwriter, you always have to go back to the blank page,
Hmm.
and the blank page is always like, the challenge,
Yeah.
of what do I have to say? Do I have anything else to say? Do I have any new way to say it? Um, so you never really feel confident, um, because you're always dealing with that insecurity of, can I do it again?
Hmm.
And even after all this time, of all these years of me writing songs, I still deal with that, where, you'll go through a period of where there's nothing,
Yeah.
and I always get to this place of where I have this little mental game where I play with myself and I say, well, maybe there's nothing else. And I say, well, no, you've been here before. There always is something else. So there probably will be,
Yeah.
and but so far so good. So so far I've landed on the side of, there is something else, and because it's like, when you're a songwriter and when you're an experienced songwriter, you can, just on craft alone, you know create something.
Yeah.
It's the way chords go together. You know how to string a melody together. You can figure out a title, but what I always search for is inspiration. That spark of something where it goes like, okay, oh, it's almost like the craft doesn't matter. I'm chasing the inspiration and finding out. Digging out the depth of what this inspiration is and what I'm trying to say, and so that's kind of how it is for me these days.
Yeah. And you formed the band Alive N Kickin in 1968 and had a hit with Tighter Tighter with that band. So, how did that success shape the rest of your journey?
It shaped the rest of my journey in this way, is that I was very young when that happened, and it was on the back of Ball of Fire being a hit.
Yeah,
And I was young, I was cocky, I thought to myself, wow, this is easy. And
yeah,
I became a little bit of a jerk. I started firing people in the band, and
mm,
I didn't understand how lucky I was to begin my career this way. uh, but subsequently, a couple of years later, I found myself back in living in the basement of my parents' house, uh, and and it became a time where I really had to realign my way of thinking, try to understand these lessons that I've learned. Understand that no, it isn't easy. That I need to appreciate these things when they happen, and it really gave me a time to really dig into my songwriting, to try and improve as a songwriter, to listen to a lot of other people, to really develop my craft. And it was in this time period I was able to write a number of the songs that became the songs for my next band, Brooklyn Dreams, that I had success with later.
Yeah. Now, in the late 70s, you met the woman who would go on to become your wife, Donna Summer, and you initially had a more professional partnership with her. So, how did you meet her and how did you sort of begin working together?
We basically began working together from the day that we met.
Mm,
I was with my partners in Brooklyn Dreams, Joe Bean Esposito and Eddie Hoganson. We were at another friend's house, a girl from Brooklyn, also who this was in Los Angeles, and she was the head of publicity at Casablanca Records, which was Donna's label. And
mm,
Donna stopped by for a visit, and that's how we met. And literally, we all sat down at the table. I had the guitar, and we started writing right from that first day. And songwriting was the vehicle by which Donna and I got to spend time together and really
mm,
get to know each other and fall in love and get married and be together for 37 years.
yeah. And did the process of writing songs and working together change once you it became romantic?
Well, in some ways, because once we started having children and life got into a whole other phase of living,
Mm,
um, we didn't write as much as we did when we were single
mm,
and on that side of our lives. Um, and we still did write, and we still did have songs that got recorded and things like that, but it did change, but life changed, so life will always change, and when you're an artist, part of being an artist is adapting to the change and expressing yourself through the change. So
mm.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I suppose this is a bit of maybe the question you get asked all the time and it's impossible to answer. But when you're writing songs like Bad Girls and Starting Over Again, did you have any idea that they would be the success that they were?
No, typically, much of my career has been um, serendipity.
Mm,
That's not to say that I didn't show up and work hard and really try. But with the situation with Bad Girls, it was a song. One of, Donna, myself, and the guys in the Dreams would go into a studio. At that point in time, we were all working very hard. Our lives were going 150 miles an hour. We
yeah.
were, Brooklyn Dreams wrote and recorded four albums between 77 and 1980. We were in a movie called American Hot Wax. There were
Mm,
TV shows. We did a world tour with Donna. Uh, um, so there was so much going on, but we still found a way. I had a friend from Brooklyn whose name was Bobby Corvia, who built
yeah.
a studio in Burbank. And we were all living in Los Angeles, and Burbank is really close. And so I was able to call him up at any hour of the night and say, "Hey, can we come into the studio now and just write?"
Mm,
So and that's how Bad Girls came about. We would show up at his studio at whatever hour. He would have four microphones set up. And we would get in front of the mics. All would have ideas. We would sing our ideas. We would join in on each other's ideas. We would roll a two-track tape machine and record it all.
Yeah.
And with Bad Girls, it was the second engineer who was transcribing the tape who said to us, "Hey, there's that song Bad Girls on there. I really like it. You should check it out." And we went and listened to it and agreed. And we did another demo of it, and then we brought it to Neil Bogart, who was the president of Casablanca Records.
Hmm.
Donna was in the process of recording the album, which would become Bad Girls at this time. And we played the demo of Bad Girls, and he said, "Yeah, it's a great song. I just signed Cher. Maybe we could give it to Cher." And and we said, "No, no, no. This is for Donna."
Yeah.
And then we went and brought it to Giorgio Moroder. He loved it, and they re-recorded the track, and that's how it came about.
Yeah.
With starting over again, it was a song that I had written about the divorce of my parents. At this
Hmm.
point in time, I was 27, 28 years old, and my parents are getting divorced. It still impacted me, even though I was an adult. And I write this song starting over again. Donna sticks her head in the door, says, "Put a line in that song about all the king's horses and all the king's men." I do that. Coincidentally, right at the same time, she was going on to the big late night television show in America called the Johnny Carson Show at the time, to promote her next single, which I think was going to be MacArthur Park. And she
Yeah.
comes to me and says, "I'm going to sing Starting Over Again on the TV show tomorrow night." And I said, "Well, you really can't do that. You got to promote your single." And blah, blah, blah. She says, "No, I'm going to sing Starting Over." So I said, "Well, why would you do that?" And she says, "Well, maybe if I sing this song and your parents hear it, they'll stay together." And which was a beautiful sentiment, and just shows you the kind of person that Donna was.
Yeah.
And so she went on the show, sang the song beautifully. My parents still got divorced,
Hmm.
but the next day Dolly Parton's people called up and said, "What about this song?" Dolly Parton records the song. It becomes the number one country song. 16 years later, Reba McEntire re-records the song, makes it the title track of her album. So, this is how things happen. You do the work, you show up, and sometimes good things happen.
Yeah. And starting over again did, as you say, become a big hit for Dolly Parton and Reba McEntire. So, what do you think made this song resonate with everyone?
Well, I think many people have experienced, the anguish of divorce.
Hmm.
And so it's a theme that many people can relate to. And when you are able to synthesize that concept into a very um, synthesize it into a way that has a good melody and a good hook,
Yeah.
and people get a chance to hear it because people who are getting their songs played on the radio are singing it, then you have a chance.
Absolutely. Now, of course, Donna passed away in 2012, so which left a massive void in the music world. But of course for you as well. So, how did you navigate the grief, and what role did music play in your healing process?
Music played a tremendous role in my healing process. Of
Mm.
course, it was a time of devastation in my life. It remains basically the worst thing that's ever happened in my life is
Mm.
losing Donna.
Yeah.
Uh, but at the same time, you know, I realized that I needed to carry on. And firstly, let me say, I began to write about the experience, and
Yeah.
I began to write about the emotions of that experience. And, it led to an album which is called With Angels on a Carousel, which was my first album that I put out once Donna passed away. where I deal with these issues of loss and recovery and carrying on with life and can you love again? Should I love again? All
Yeah.
all these kind of emotions, and in doing that, it then became the challenge of, okay, Bruce, are you going to go out and perform these songs on your own? Now I've had a long history in the music business, but I've always been in a band. I've always been on stage with Donna, but I've never had to be the one carrying the load and and singing the songs.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting challenge for me, and it's been 13 years now, and I've really grown. I continue to grow in the role. I continue to be inspired as a songwriter, and it's been a very interesting and fulfilling part of my journey.
Absolutely. You've spent so much of your career writing and performing for Donna. So now that you've been focusing more on your own music, how has it felt to step into the spotlight as a solo artist after all those years?
Well, as I was just saying, it was a
Mm.
tremendous challenge for me.
Yeah.
Um, but it gave me a place to grow to.
Mm.
See, so that's why it worked for me, because it was an area that I hadn't lived in before. So, in spite of the grief and all that, this was a road that I hadn't taken, and I saw a light at the end of this road, and so it was a challenge, but it also gave me a path to take. And it it gave me a reason to carry on.
Absolutely. Now, your latest album, which is called Talking Ugly Truth, Telling Pretty Lies, reflects on your growth as both a musician and a person. So, what experiences from your life do you explore in the album?
Yeah, this album touches on a few different areas. Um, the title track is the story of a couple of renegades who choose to live their life on the edge and do things the wrong way, expecting that they're going to get away with doing it the wrong way forever, which
Yeah.
never really works out. And at the same time, the song is making a commentary on what I call the assault on the truth in our culture these days. So that particular song. Um, there are a couple of songs also that deal with socio things. There's one called "Under the Gun," which uh, delves into the concept of gun control. This is a big issue in America,
Yeah.
where we have these mass shootings, these school shootings, and because of money and power, there is a reluctance to put common sense gun control laws in place to help protect and you know in these situations. So that's what that song is about. But at the same time, there's a beautiful love song called Two Bleeding Hearts, which I get to do as a duet with a marvelous singer and Hall of Fame songwriter, Valerie Simpson.
Mm.
Valerie Simpson was one half of the duo Ashford and Simpson,
Oh,
wrote
wow.
songs like I'm Every Woman, Ain't No Mountain High Enough, Ain't Nothing Like the Real Thing. So it was a great treat to have her not only sing with me, but to sing a song of mine on my record. And it's a very beautiful song. So there's that. Um, there's a song called "Better Than This," and "Better Than This" is starts out as the 17-year-old guy driving his car 2 o'clock in the morning, stopping at some girlfriend's house, getting a little bit of action and carrying on with his night. Second verse gets into the middle-aged guy dealing with the issues of a middle-aged person, and the third verse takes us to the older guy that I am now. And the
Mm.
concept of the song basically is saying that there are challenges in every phase of life, but in every phase of life, there is also joy to be found. So let's lean on the joy, take on the challenges, because it don't get any better than this. So.
Yeah. Uh, and is there a song on the album that you maybe almost didn't put out, or maybe were questioning whether to put it out because it was too personal or too raw, but you knew you had to?
No, I don't think so. I have no fear of being too personal or too raw.
Mm.
I think that it's in those areas that you reach the most people.
Yeah.
There's another song on the record called "How'd You Get Here," and "How'd You Get Here" is, I call it my ode to the baby boomer.
Mm.
Because it talks about, the baby boomers were the youth generation, the peace and love generation, and now this generation is finding itself as the older generation and having to deal with fears and emotions that they've never confronted before. And how do you deal with those things?
Mm.
And so that's what How'd You Get Here is about. There's a spoken word piece that kind of touches on the same area. It's called Navigating the Unforeseen. Um, so yeah, so the album covers a lot of territory, and um, there's another song called "Make the World Go Away," and "Make the World Go Away" is kind of like a mid-tempo groove kind of track that is essentially a prayer. Saying, the weight of the world is so heavy. Somebody help take it off my shoulders.
Yeah.
Uh, just for a day. Give me a little room to breathe. So, and that has some great backing vocals on this record, which was produced by Ken Lewis. Ken Lewis has produced everybody from Kanye to I don't know who,
Yeah.
but he's a world class producer and did a great job on this album. Um, but the backing vocals on "Make the World Go Away" on a few of the other tracks, "Talking Ugly Truth" as well, is Irene Blackman,
Oh.
and she's a New York City girl, as sweet as she can be, soulful as she can be, and has just an amazing voice. And she just colors in and around me on this album in a very beautiful way. Um, One last thing that I always forget to mention is that this artwork, that's the cover of the album, or the CD, if as you desire,
Mm.
is taken from an art piece from Donna. Donna was
Mm.
a tremendous painter, and so the cover is a segment uh, of one of her pieces. Basically, what I did was I took an iPhone photo of just a part of her painting and made it into the cover.
Oh, wow.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got all kinds of elements going on in this record.
Yeah. Well, what's next for you? Are there any new projects or collaborations, or is this album the focus for now?
Well, no, now I'm back in Milan, and Milan is where you know Milan is where I do a lot of my writing these days because
Yeah.
when I'm in Los Angeles, I have a lot of family, I have a lot of grandkids, and my focus is a little bit shifted.
Yeah.
And when I'm on the road, I also find it difficult to focus and write when I'm on the road. So when I get to Milan, I have a lot of time and space and room to breathe and think. And so I'm already working on songs for the next record. I'm actually putting out the first single from the next record within the next few weeks.
Oh.
Um, I wrote a song last week. It's called "Watching Darkness Fall," and it's basically an up tempo, you know, acoustic rock song
Mhm.
uh, with talking about the intimidation. You know, there's an intimidation factor that's going on in the States now where government is intimidating people from speaking their minds.
Mm.
It's intimidating people who want to come with a visa into America. It's checking, you know, your iPhone if you have any things that the disagree with the current administration. So this song is speaking about that kind of intimidation, and so that's going to be, and so this next record is going to be sketches, as opposed to fully producing the record. I'm stripping it down to the sketches that I create here in my studio in Milan, where I'm basically by myself writing the song and creating the environment that the song lives in. And because I think the immediacy is more important in these days than the
Yeah.
production value. So,
Yeah.
especially when most people listen to things on their iPhone.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
so that's where I am right now.
Yeah. Well, in the meantime, where are we able to find this current album, Talking Ugly Truth, Telling Pretty Lies? I take it it's available in all the sort of modern platforms, but also you mentioned a CD, right?
Yep, CD and vinyl. You can get that on my website. You
Brilliant.
know, so
Yeah.
yeah, Spotify, iTunes, all YouTube. Some great videos off this record as well. It's a great video for Talking Ugly Truth.
Oh,
People really like it.
brilliant.
So
Well,
check it out.
yeah. Well, many thanks for coming on the show today. It's been great to have you here.
I look forward to getting back to your part of the world. I enjoy it there very much. So hope to see you soon.